Dave, obviously started that season, 87, 88, we didn't start particularly well, but when we went on that 14-game winning streak, what was your relationship with the gaffer, with George Graham? How did you find working with him and the difference from previous coaches and managers?
Yeah, well, George was completely different to what I'd experienced before. Obviously, I'd been at the club from when I was 14. And once I got into the first team at 17, my first manager was Terry Neal. And Terry Neal was, he gave my debut, so I've got not a bad word to say about Terry. And he was totally a different character to George. And it was a different time because we had big players, Tony Woodcock, Kenny Sampson, Graham Ricks, all the big internationals. And they kind of, I suppose, took over a little bit, in terms of, I looked at Terry and I felt as a young player, I didn't feel as though he had full control of the group.
Right.
But when George came in, he completely changed that. And but between George and Terry, there's Don Howe who took over for a while. So those were the two managers I had before George, Terry Neal and Don Howe. And George was completely different. And you came in that first year, and he changed the old setup. He took out the guys that he felt, the senior guys that he felt wasn't, up to the standard, or they weren't performing.
It was working, wasn't it? Work ethic. It was work.
It was, yeah, definitely. And those guys were made clear very quickly from George that, I don't care how many international caps you got, how much you're earning. If you're not going to produce in the training, on the training field and on the pitch, then, you're not going to be in my team, and I'm going to give the youngsters a chance. And that's really what George did when he first came in. He was very clear about, his messages were clear. And
you said about on the training pitch, Dave, and we knew what we were going to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, every day. But what was did you think was our style? Talk about identity these days and philosophies. What was our style?
Well, I thought when George first came in, he's very, as you know, he's very disciplined, and he knew really what he wanted from every one of us, and we were all very clear on that. There was no sort of grey areas. I felt as though I knew what he wanted, and I had to deliver. And I think most of the other players felt the same. I suppose our identity was DNA, they call it now, don't they? So it was like
trendy,
a young team, some really young players, exuberant, pace, energetic, but we were well organised, weren't we? The system we knew, 4-4-2, and players knew their roles within that. But there was some flair. We had Rocky, Dave Rocastle, we had Paul Merson, and players who could play and wanted to play, and George gave them those licenses to play. So it was exciting, I thought, for the first few years of George.
Do you know what, Mauricio Pochettino likened himself, well, I likened him to sort of Raleigh. He thinks that he discovered pressing, that he brought the pressing game and closing down game from Espanyol to Southampton. But that was George all over, wasn't it?
Oh yeah. He had us working as a team, didn't he? We all knew that he wanted us, what he wanted us to do. And actually, as you say, the pressing was a big part of our game, wasn't it? We did smother teams in terms of everybody working together, and particularly in midfield, us guys in midfield had to work really hard with George. He actually said in one meeting to us that the guys in midfield, because you're working so hard, you're not going to be able to play for as long as the guys at the back.
Yeah,
killed us off. But he was open and upfront about it. He had us protecting the two midfielders, myself and maybe whoever I played with,
Steve
Williams or Michael Thomas, and later on Dave Illia, Ziggy Johnson. People, there was quite a few that I played with over the years. I was there, but You know, I was kind of a mainstay. Kevin Richardson, there was loads,
Yeah.
but he wanted the same thing from us: that closing down, protecting two centre backs, mainly Tony and Steve Bold.
And Dave O'Leary obviously was sort of Rodder's mentor, right? In that period where we won the 14 on the spin, you and Willow played all 14 games.
Right.
So just tell us about your relationship with Steve Williams playing in that centre, because we'd won the League Cup the year before, where you two are outstanding in the final against Liverpool. Yeah. That sort of the balance and the relationship you and him had in that centre midfield.
Yeah, it was interesting because we were completely different personalities.
Yep.
Off the field and on the field. I think off the field we got on really, really well, but on the field we didn't get on so well.
Davo, he didn't get on with anyone. He just moaned at everybody.
Well, he did. You're right. He did. Like you tell him, you ask him to do something on the pitch, and he'd be effing and jeffing at you, and he's thinking, "Hold on, Steve, we're supposed to be doing this together, not on your own." He was a bit like that, wasn't he? But he was a great player in terms of ability-wise. He didn't want to listen to anybody directing him. He didn't take instruction very well, and he fell out with George a few times on that. But you know, he is what he is, and he was what he was as a player. And he had great passing ability. He was calm on the ball. I remember plenty of times us falling out on the pitch, and you know, trying to direct him to go and do something, or you know, thinking that he should be doing this, and he'd just turn around and tell you where to go, and he was like, "That's how he was." But you know, it was a good. You know, you just had to understand him. We got on with it. Off the pitch, you know, he couldn't be a nicer bloke, could he?
But the thing is,
he'd do anything for you, talk to you nicely, but on the pitch, he just changed into a different guy. He's amazing. But that's a great success with him.
Yeah, I thought, like, playing in front of you two, I thought the balance was great. I thought the natural balance with you two, you being left-footed, him being like right-sided. But these days, there's holding midfield players, and there's attacking midfield players. There's number 6, number 9. You two weren't like that. You were centre of midfield players, weren't you?
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. It has changed. The game's changed, and the position, the way players are playing in different positions have changed. And yeah, we were, I think, very similar in ways. Because you're right. I was mainly left-footed. He was mainly right-footed. Although he's probably more. He could use both feet as well. But we were both passing players. I felt. I didn't feel that we were sort of up and down necessarily. I was probably more up and down than he was, you know, getting into the attacking areas probably.
He was a bit deeper than you, wasn't he?
He was, yeah, he was, and he was more. You know, we both wanted to be on the ball really, and wanted to play. So we were very similar. We weren't particularly quick.
Being a bit harsh on yourself, David.
we weren't at your level in pace terms. So
you had it in your head.
We read the game, but we got it to you guys, yourself and
Smudge
and Merce and Smudge and Anders Limpar later on, and you know, it was good to be able to know that we had players that we could deliver the ball to, and we had the pace. We had the difference of yourself with pace, and Smudge who could hold it up, and then we had Merce who could do, you know, something out of the ordinary. So then, you know, Anders Limpar later on, who was a phenomenal player, as we all know.
Davo, you mentioned earlier about Mickey Tomo and Dave Rocastle, Rocky, whatever. Give me an idea of what you felt your responsibility to. They were young. They looked up to you. They used to call you Pops, didn't they? So they're coming in to the team. People forget that Tomo started his career at right back. That's where he played in. He played all 14 games at right back in that, you know, that run. And then Rocky's in front of him. So you had senior players to look up to, but they looked up to you. Yeah,
it was nice to have those guys in and around the team at that time, because I'd been in the team. So I'm a little bit older than Michael and Rocky at that time, probably 5 years, 6 years older. So I'd been in and around the team, and they were coming through the youth setup. So they would have been, you know, when I was playing, they were in the youth setup, and they were looking at me, because we'd come from the same. We grew up in the same area. So South
Yeah.
London, they're South London boys, and I'm South London. And I didn't know them, they didn't know me, but obviously they knew of me, and obviously they kind of followed me because they saw I was in the team, and they wanted to get there, and thought, wow, he's come from the same area as I've grown up. He looks like me, he behaves like me. So I was kind of, I was the sort of inspiration for them to get into the team.
Yeah.
So once they were in, and I heard about them coming through the youth setup, I'd heard their names, I knew where they were from. And so, yeah, you just feel as though you want them to succeed because, you know where they're coming from. And yeah, I definitely had an affinity with them and them with me. And so when they broke into the team, it was great to see. And they just came in and they had their own personalities, as you know. Rocky, everybody knows what Rocky's about and the way he was. And Michael, again, had a personality, different character, but you had to have something about you to obviously come through a club like Arsenal and play. And both those guys did that. And yeah, they did look up to me, and I felt as though I needed to set good examples for them and try to do right things and try to put them in the right direction. So yeah, we had a great young, and there was other players, wasn't there? There was Tony Adams, who came from a different part of London. Again,
Yeah, he was a Romford boy, wasn't
he? Yeah. Later than that, there's many others. Martin Hayes and Kevin Campbell, who came through.
Gus was there. Gus Caesar.
Yeah. Gus, North London. So we had a lot of local lads, and I suppose I was the first of the local ones to come through, because even before, I don't think.
Dave, you said there about local lads. Do you think, looking at the comparison between our team, who went 14 wins on the trot, Man City, obviously equaling, and they could break the record. Do you think it's important to have local? We talk about Phil Foden playing for Man City. So do you think it's important for a club to have those local players coming through?
Yeah, I think so. I think when you were there when we were doing well, you saw what it's like in the dressing room and how those guys came together. And I think it does have that extra value when you bring in some younger players and they've come through that youth system. There's, you can't really, no amount of money can put that into a squad of players, that togetherness and that understanding that you've all come through that system together. So, yeah, and I think it's the same today. If clubs can nurture that and get that into their younger players into their squads, and so we had about 5, 6 that had come through the system.
Yeah,
along with the players, the good buys that George made. So many. Lee Dixon, Nigel Winterburn, yourself, Baldy, Richo, yeah. There's so many, and there's others that I haven't mentioned there. And the blend that we had with the young players, yeah, you can't beat it if you can get that at a club. And yeah, Man City have got that in terms, it's harder to get into Man City's team than it probably was to get into ours at that time. But in Foden, they got someone special there, haven't they?
So with Man City, can you see any similarities between our team, who went that 14 wins on the trot, and Man City, and being left-footed, and you had great balance, didn't you? And left-footed players always look more easy on the eye, didn't they, than right? So have you been impressed with Foden and the way that he's progressed?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's an outstanding player, isn't he? He's just got everything, and he's gonna get better without doubt. Mentally, you can see that he's ready for it. So I'm just thinking our closest player that probably looks like or played like Foden might have been Anis Limpar, perhaps. Yeah, but the game's changed, isn't it? I don't think our football wasn't of Man City's type, let's say.
Yeah.
So I was looking at some of the goals late this morning, actually, and a lot of the goals, we had a mixture of different ways of playing, and a lot of our goals came different ways. So I'm trying to compare with Man City. A lot of their goals are almost perfect goals, the way the way they've carved them out, and it's brilliant to watch. But compared to the way we scored our goals, and looking at, there's some that Dave Seaman would be just kicking it from the goal.
From Lukey. John Lukey, exactly, yeah.
John Lukey, yeah. And Smudge would be flicking it on, and then yourself or Kevin or Russ will be getting the ricochets and rebounds and just having a shot on goal. And then there'll be other goals that we scored, which will be Man City-esque. So, and then there'll be goals in between. It was really interesting to reviewing some of our goals.
Do you know what, Dave?
The variation that we had was quite amazing.
But you look at that, we were 4-4-2, right? All the time. Didn't change from 4-4-2. But in that rigid structure that we had, and you knew your jobs, we had technically gifted players. Like, I'm not butting you up, but you, Tomo, Steve Williams, David Rocastle, Rixie played in 6 of the games. Kenny Sansom was so in that structure, there was still some very, very good technically gifted footballers.
Absolutely, yeah. I didn't know there was. That's what I agree. And I think for the first, I would say for me, for the first 4-5 seasons, I felt that those players were allowed to express themselves to a certain degree. Mm-hmm. And that's when I felt most excited about playing. I personally felt that it fell away a little bit, and I don't know, I just felt we tightened up as a team, and individuals weren't able to perform or show their individuality within the team after that.
Right.
And so the first 4 or 5 years with George, I think we had a structure and everybody knew their jobs. But yeah, as you said, we had players that could be individualist and were able to do that within that structure.
So what about obviously with Man City, they've gone on do you think the title's done and dusted? They've gone on an unbelievable run. And you know what is similar as well, Davo? You said about Man City, being perfect goals. I just did a bit of comparison. They keep clean sheets. George Graham wasn't it? Clean sheets. Don't concede. Yeah. It's weird that Guardiola has gone that way with his back four.
Yeah. No, as you say, with George, that was the thing, wasn't it? We had to defend, don't give anything away, and we always nick a goal if it was the game was going that way. And as we had good defenders, we had good players, we had a good structure, and that season that you're talking about, was it? What was the season where we went 16 goals in the season conceded?
Oh, that was that was 1990-91.
That was 1991.
18 it was, I think, yeah.
18. So that, those type of numbers for conceding were unheard of in those days, and we were able to grind out games 1-0. But yeah, I think Pep and Man City have changed in terms of that, because when Pep first came in, he didn't care if they had goals scored against them, did he? He just wanted to score more. It didn't matter if it was 3 against, so long as they got four goals for. So it does seem to have changed the way they play in terms of the number of goals that they're conceding.
Do you know what they've done is, watching them, he's worked on. You can tell he's worked. They've gone back to a back four. Normally, he would be like 4-2-3-1 or 3-4-3 or whatever, right? He's gone back mainly to a 4-3-3, and you can tell that they defend. If you look at Stones and Diaz, the two centre backs, Zinchenko, they defend quite narrow. He's worked on the unit, so perhaps he's watched the highlights of the 87-88 season and gone, right, I know exactly what I want to do.
Yeah, you're probably right there. He's probably watched us, hasn't he? I'll tell you what's interesting, the way the game, there's so many things around where the game's changed, I feel. But one of the big things is that, remember with George, he always wanted us to show the opposition inside, didn't he?
Inside, all the time.
Inside. You can't do that now. Everyone's saying, you got to go outside. You got to go outside. No one wants to. it's amazing how that's changed, because that was one of our biggest sort of strategies or tactics.
Yeah.
Show them inside, show them into the middle of the pitch. But I'm involved in coaching now. No one says that at all. It'd be interesting if a team came up and actually started showing people inside what they were doing.
The thing is, Dave, on that though, the showing inside, right? Kenny Sanson, when he's first in the, he was in the team first, and Viv was there, wasn't he? Then Tom coming. The older fullbacks struggled with it because they were always taught, show the player down the line, show him down the line. And then George changed it round but you had to work. So if you're inside Richo or Graham Ricks, right, and they're showing inside, you had to be the next one in that they were showing inside too, wouldn't they? Then you had to show them inside, and it was all about going across, wasn't it? Making them go across the pitch. But we worked on it.
Yeah, we worked on that all the time, didn't we? In training, the sessions that George structured up was for us to become a real tight-knit unit in that, and we did that a lot, didn't we? Phase sessions where players coming at us, and we just had to organise ourselves so that the ball was being played, so that they were coming inside all the time. It worked for us, didn't it? We didn't concede many goals. People knew what they were doing, and but the game has changed so much since. I still watch it a lot, and obviously still involved in terms of the coaching side of it. So, but coming back to your question around the way the midfielders changed and the type of midfielders now. So yeah, when the time we're talking about, generally it was most teams played 4-4-2, didn't they?
Yeah.
Those two central midfielders were generally similar in most teams. You had one midfielder who would sit and hold, and one that would be up and get back. And most teams played that way. So nowadays, obviously, it's a different ball game in there, isn't it? There's not many teams that sort of play with that sort of system. A lot of teams are playing with.
You mentioned about like the gaffer changing the culture, like older players there on big money, but maybe not performing how he wanted them to. But did you have any feeling right at the start? I know we won the Littlewoods Cup in '87. We hadn't won a trophy for like 7 years, I think it was. But did you have a feeling that this group of players, that George was the manager, that we could go on and win titles? Like, because we were a long way away from winning the top flight title, wasn't we, when George first came in? Did you have a feeling? And if you did, when did that sort of come in? You think, do you know what, we could challenge it?
I suppose he won his a trophy in his first season, didn't he, George?
Yeah,
87. Yeah, and you could see obviously winning that gave us confidence, and his ideas were pretty clear, and the way he was. So I did feel pretty early on that we were onto something, and we would, if with a bit of luck, start winning some more stuff. So it didn't take him long to convince me that we would be, starting to win more stuff. And he bought well. Bought people like yourselves to fill in the gaps that were missing. I think that was one of the things with George. He bought well. He bought players that came in and added value. People like, we mentioned them earlier on. Lee Dixon was all of the guys were good by Nigel Winterburn, and even Andy Linnigan came in, didn't he, from Norwich, and for me, Steve Bold was an outstanding buy. The number of games that he played, and for the price that George was getting these players for, because they weren't sort of they weren't coming from the higher leagues, were sort of lower, they're playing lower. And so because you came from Colchester, wasn't it?
Yeah. Do you know what, Dave? I would say there, do you think that you benefited from? Obviously, you was very technical and very naturally gifted, but did you benefit from the players that you bought from the lower league, like the hunger that was coming in, like Lee Dixon, like Bolt, that hunger?
Yeah. I think it was good for us as players that have been at the club from when we were younger. So I was there from when I was 14. You know, Rocky and Michael Thomas, all the other guys, Tony Adams and Kevin Campbell, all those guys, Gus Caesar, had all been there, you know, from young. So we didn't know anything else. And then, you know, so George, well, I obviously knew of Graham Ricks as a youngster, but I was a little bit older, so I'd seen other players come in. But I think for people like Michael Thomas and Rocky and Kevin, you know, it's the first they're in the team. They, you know, players are coming in from outside, and they're seeing how these players are and the determination and the will to win. I think these guys had it anyway, but it's just coming from a different angle. They're seeing it from, you know, a different viewpoint. And all you guys wanted to do well for yourselves. It was an opportunity. It seemed we all wanted to do well, but you guys are coming in, and it was like, you know, you could see that you all wanted to make a mark, and it was an opportunity. So it was great that mix happened. You guys came in, and George bought, like I say, George bought well. He bought people that were hungry to do well and actually delivered. I don't suppose at that time they all delivered. I think later on, one or two buys for George went wrong, and I think that's probably where it went wrong for him. But at that time, he bought well, and everybody that came in just delivered when they needed to, and the mixture made the team. I think that mixture made us what we were.
Right, Davo, you've got a real. You coach the coaches now, don't you? You're a mentor of the coaches. You coach the coaches for the PFA, whatever. Right. I'm going to give you a $64,000 question now. I'm going to read out the two teams, right? So, us, that 87-88. Lukic, Thomas, O'Leary, Adams, Sansom, Rocastle, Williams, Davis, Richardson, Smith and Groves, right? Against Edison, Cancelo, Stones, Diaz, Zinchenko, Bernardo Silva, Rodri, Gundogan, Mahrez, Sterling, Foden. Us 4-4-2, them 4-3-3. Who wins?
Of course we do.
Like it, Dave. Totally impartial.
It's like,
you didn't think about it.
It's a bit of a silly question there. No. I mean, it's difficult for me to really try and gauge that seriously, because they're both good teams, and you know, I'm going to say us because I know what we're made of, but people will be looking and listening to this thinking, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I can understand that. But I'm definitely going to go with us.
You know what, Davo? It'll be competitive, put it that way. They wouldn't be tick-attacking back, would they?
Exactly. It'd be a different game, wouldn't it? And I suppose, yeah, it's like the game has changed so much, Perry, hasn't it? It's like, you know, the way we played, we wouldn't last, would we? We'd be down to eight players on the pitch, and I suppose, yeah, it'd be.
You know what we should do? You know, it should be a two-legged affair, right? The rules from 1987-88, right, as football was played then, and then the next one is the rules as it's played now, and see who adapts better.
Yeah, that'd be. I like that. Yeah, I like that. But yeah, seriously, to answer your question, I'd say us, but I know everybody's shouting down the screen saying, "What's he on about?"
The Gooners won't be, Davo. They'll be going, that's a proper Gooner.